There's no sound yet. Can you hear me now, Emily? Can you hear me? I had no sound on, but now I do. Why is it small? Oh, Brenda, my heart breaks for you. I have to say. I could not do that. Okay. Emily, if you still can't hear me, then sign out and sign back in. Because then it's on your end, because everybody else can hear me. Okay, we're going to give it just one more minute. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to my creative little world here. Today, you all know, is our last Library Live. We have been here for 15 months. So, while it's very sad, and I'm very sad, I'm also happy that life is getting back to normal and we can go back to seeing each other and being with each other and all those wonderful things. So hopefully you all won't be so sad. I'll miss you all. I can imagine your apple trees are not so happy, because I would not be so happy. I don't like snow in January and February. Certainly not in May. All right, we're going to start. Welcome, everybody. Tonight, we're going to go a little bit slower than we normally go because it's a beginner class. So I'll go over floating and I'll go over dry brushing my way. Now, my original piece, let me grab it. My original piece was done on a phone stand. So this goes in here, just like our tablet stand glass. And it sits like that. And I'm using my phone. And your phone sits on it. And you can charge it. And it's really a fabulous thing. I didn't think I'd love them, but I have to say I'm loving them. Tracy Morrow has them. She's tracymorrow.net. Viking Woodcraft has them. But I think they must be vikingwoodcrafts.com. Patty Rawlinson has them. She's Creative Arts, I think. I'm not sure. Don't quote me. So, if you want them. But keep in mind, here's my design that I put on. And then I just changed it to another surface. So when I changed it to another surface, I just added some more leaves. And of course, some more ladybugs. Okay? So you're never bound to a surface. You can move it to any other surface. So this is a plaque. I didn't position my leaves very well. If I did, I would have written something here. And tonight I'm going to do it on a different plaque. And this is just because I have them hanging around. I positioned these a little bit better so I can write something here. And then we'll do something with it. And I'll put this here so you can see. Now, I had you base leaves and ladybugs. You're going to touch them up, which is why I didn't base in my ladybugs. But don't worry about making them messy. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a stencil. Hi, Marie. I'm going to use, this one's a distressed Harlequin. This one was a straight Harlequin. You can use anything you want. I just thought this one was a little easier because it fits the whole surface. Okay, so you're going to lay your stencil down. A lot of people tape it. If you want to tape it so it won't move. I'm not a big taper. feel free to change your coloring. I'm going to use Extreme Sheen's Antique Bronze. I love the shimmer of them. So I'm not going to take, got to shake it better than that. If your paint comes out like that, where it's separated, it's not shaken enough. So you gotta really give it a good shake. There you go. And you don't need a lot. So I'm going to take a stencil brush. I use a Stencil Pro because it's a really good brush, but it's a synthetic brush, so you can clean it with a baby wipe or hand sanitizer and still use it, which is something you don't usually do with stencil brushes. Okay, so I'm going to pick up my paints, and I loaded it on the whole brush. I'm going to take my paper towel, and I'm just going to scrub till there's just a little bit left. If I scrub like this, it's going to seep under. So I'm going to scrub most of it off. With light pressure, I'm going to circles. See how I'm doing circles? Clockwise, counterclockwise, clockwise, counterclockwise. You will get it on your ladybugs. You will get it on your leaves. We're going to touch them up. Doesn't matter. Okay, so we're here. And you see how I'm going both ways? Now, if you run out of paints, just reload. Make sure that you're really scrubbing your paints off. Now, let me get some more paint. Just say I only had half. Okay? So you're going to line it back up. When you do the other half, just go to where it's the same pattern, line it up, and continue. Okay? I have no idea what I did. There you go. So you see how I just lined it up? And this is with any stencil. So if you have a stencil that doesn't cover your whole surface, do the part that you have, and then just move it and line it back up. Okay. Now if you don't have antique bronze, or you don't like antique bronze, stencil any color you want. If you don't like Harlequin, do circles or do swirls, or this is all to pull the piece together and give it an interesting background. It doesn't matter that it's not the same as mine. I like the way the bronze picks up the red. And then I hold one side or where you're taped, and I lift and make sure I'm happy, and then I lift. I think these are a little bit harder to line up. I needed one right there. That's better. Now, you can see, let me pull it closer for you. Oops. On my leaves, now remember you're a little time delayed, so I have to wait a minute. It's all over my leaves. So I'm just going to put another coat of green on my leaves. Yeah, so you can see it there. Okay. And FYI, if you have questions, please ask me. I will answer them. I keep checking the comments. I try to answer them all. Usually I do, and if I don't, and even if I do, I will go back in after class and I will type the answer, so that if you fall behind or there's a reason you need to know the answer again, it'll be there for you. And of course, if you need to get in touch with me, you can message me. You can also call the library and they'll get me. Alright, so when base coat, I use a flat brush. And generally I use the largest brush for the area. I'm going a little smaller because I want to get in these points. I pick up my paints, and I don't have a lot of paint on there, but I'm not doing this. Let me see if that'll show you. You can see those lumps. If you do those lumps, it will dry that way. You don't want it to dry that way. So you're going to pull it nice and smooth. Sometimes, I did these before, the green took me 3 coats to cover. This will only take 1. And you only have to touch up where you got the stenciling. And you see how nice and smooth I'm pulling it? So there are no lumps right now. You will see 2 different colors because it's wet and it's dry. It will dry the same color. Okay, but always base coat in smooth coats. You never want lumpy coats. I always say we can fix anything. You're not married to it. A messy base coat, you're married to. Because when it dries in lumps, short of sanding all that off, you're kind of married to it. So you'll come in, and hopefully I move at a pace that you can keep up and finish your piece. And you see, so let me just show you something. Let me do the next sleeve. When I base coated, and this is how I base coat, it's not how you have to base coat. You see these points, these kinds of leaves have these points. So I take my brush on the side like this, and I pull in the point, I pull in the point, I pull in the point, and then I base coat away from the point. It keeps the point, and I don't have to go in and take a liner and line it and then come out. I'm on the very chisel edge of the brush, so let me just give you a very quick brush thing. Let me just take that off. If you make a mistake, take a wet Q-tip and it'll pull it right off. This is the handle. This is the ferrule of the brush. This is the bristles of the brush. The very edge of the bristles is called the chisel edge of the bristles. So if you keep the chisel edge and you're up on the edge, you can get yourself a nice point without having to use a liner to line it first. Okay. And then I'm flat when I'm here. All my bristles are down. All my bristles are on the surface. And you see, now you wouldn't even know. Now when I paint from the back of the design out for just this reason. So this is a really good example of why. You see how I could just come in and touch up here? If I had done the leaves first, I'd have to be really careful of not getting any of the stenciling on the leaves, because as I cleaned them off, it would pull the paint off, and I don't want to do that. So I just come in and I work from the back forward. So when you look at this design, the furthest thing away is the background. Then you have your leaves, and then you'll have your ladybugs. And that's exactly how we're going to do them. Now I'm touching up with Hauser Green Medium. It's not the worst thing if you have a different green. Just a very simple explanation of color. There are different temperatures of color. There are also different values of color. So a basic value scale is light, medium, and dark. And then when you go a little bit further, you go to a highlight and a low dark. When you're doing a basic design, you'll have your light, your medium, and your dark. So your medium is what you'll base coat in. Your light is what you'll highlight in, which will bring the part of the element you're working on closer to your eye. And your dark, which will make the area that you're working on recede. So you base coat in your medium, you highlight in your light, and you shade in your dark. So if you're using a different color than I am, just make sure you have a darker green and a lighter green. And it's the same thing for the reds. Okay. Thank you all for being here with me. Hopefully you'll learn something. Okay. Sorry. That's me drinking water. All right, we're going to give it a minute to dry now. If you look at your piece, sometimes it's hard to see it on the camera, but if you look at it on an angle, it's all shiny here. If it's shiny, that means your paint is still wet. If it is not shiny, that means your paint is dry. So you don't have to touch it and put your fingers in it. You can see, hopefully, right here, I have a wet spot on this leaf. All outside of that is dry. That's how you tell if your paint is still wet. Okay? Okay. I am not going to base my ladybugs yet. And, oh, I'm upside down. Okay. So we need, I believe I gave you black green to shade. My original piece has Midnite Green, but they have since, in the past month, discontinued it. So we're going to work with black green, which is a very dark green, but it's a really pretty green. It'll just be a little bit darker. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to shade. Now, shading, okay, so our technique is floating. And I'll show you how, but I want you to hear my words. Floating is our technique. When we float with a darker color, it's called shading, which will make the item appear further. And when we float with a lighter color, or lighter value, it's called highlighting, which will bring the item closer to us. So my leaf here is the same as my leaf here. But you can see this looks like it's going down, this looks like it's coming up. And this leaf doesn't look flat, it looks like this because of my lights and my darks. Okay. So we're going to take at least a 12 flat or larger. I use chisel blenders, which means they're shorter bristles as opposed to that. So you can see it's probably a good 1/4 inch. The shorter the bristles, the better the control is. So you'll have more control with your brush. Now, when you float, let me get a pen so that I can write this here. You get a writing lesson too. Floating. 4 steps. Wet, blot, load, blend. When we put our brush to the surface, all the bristles on all the surface all the time. Now screenshot that so you have it. Okay? So floating is 4 steps. Wet, blot, load, blend. When we get to the actual putting our brush to the surface, all the bristles on all the surface all the time. If you remember those things and keep them in your head, in a paper next to you, write them out and leave them here so that when you're working, you do wet, blot, load, blend until it becomes a habit. Okay, so you need a piece of scrap paper, which I'm going to use this so you can still see the top of it. We're going to lay our paint where we want to push it down. So in this case, it's going to be the base of the leaf. So first step is we're going to wet. Clean water. You will see a shine on your bristles. And I tell you this because every brush is different. So you'll see a shine on your bristles. You're going to blot flat. Watch the shine go from the chisel edge. As soon as it hits the ferrule, lift. Okay, you want some water in there because we're working with water. When you pick up your paint, you'll have a puddle of paint. Try to hold your brush as perpendicular as you can to the paint puddle, and you're only going to load a corner of the brush. Okay, depending on the area you're working on. So I went about that far. And then on my scrap paper, I'm going to blend in very short strokes. 1, 2. See how short those strokes are? Until I have a graduation of color. So I went from heavy, like this, to like this, blending it out in small strokes. I'm going to lay my brush perfectly flat. Hi, Joanne. I'm going to lay my brush perfectly flat. If you have a pressure from 1 to 10, my pressure is probably a good 8. And I'm going to lay my brush flat. I am not holding it on the side. And I'm going to come right along the bottom of the leaf. Okay? So every time you want to do it again. Now if you have a bad float, take what's called a mop, and on the very tip, just lightly up and down. You want to blend it, you don't want to pull it. Okay? So wet, blot, corner load, blend. I'm going to do this one again because it's not talkative. Make sure I'm in the camera. That's better. I'm going to come right along the bottom. Now you see how wide I am? I want to be pretty wide. Not my best float. And you see how I could just fix that caca float that I had going on there? And you can hear me wiping it. I'm wiping it on my shirt, but you wipe it on a paper towel. Because you always want your mop to be dry. So move to the next one. And if you're doing this, a couple of things. If you have a question, please, please, please ask me. That's really important. And the second thing, which is really, really important, give yourself a break if this is the first time you've floated. Floated is a technique you have to learn. But it's a really, really important technique because it's the technique that will give you your depth on every piece you do with me anyway. So I don't think there's a piece that I do that doesn't have floating. You'll all see when you're back in the library with me. I've been teaching at the library for, I don't know, 20 years. And they all say to me, oh, I'm not floating again. Yes, floating again. But after a while, you get used to it. And it's It's a better experience. Be kind to yourself. Okay? Don't expect perfect. I will tell you the biggest mistake people make is that they skip a step because they forget one of them, which is why I said if you leave your notes next to you, or you say, see, now that's not dark enough, or if you say when you're doing it, wet, blot, load, blend. And then when you get here, a lot of people do this. They'll lift their brush on an angle. So you lose the graduation of color. Then you just have a line of color. So you lost the whole technique. Okay? So really important. And if you should get more out of it, but the biggest thing about floating is wet, blot, load, blend. So again, I wet, I blot flat, I corner load. In this case, I'm corner loading half of my brush because I want a wide float. And then I blend flat till I have and I'm walking away until I have a graduation of color. Then I take my brush and I lay it right on my surface. My paint edge of my brush, and this is a rule, it is always, there are not exceptions, the paint edge of your brush is towards what you're wanting to push down. So in this case, I want to push down the base of the leaf. My mouth is getting a workout tonight. And if your floating is not what you want, don't worry about it. We're going to dry brush and lose a lot of it. Okay, this is our depth. So wet, blot, load, blend. Now, if you're doing it again like I am, make sure you're dry or you're going to pull it off. When I mopped it, I dried it. And when you clean your brush, you know, when you dry your brush, don't go into the wet spots of your paper towel because you don't want it to be wet. Is that bad float? One more. Wet, blot, corner load, blend. Blend flat, all the bristles on all the surface, all the time. 8 pressure, 1 to 10, you're an 8. And I'm pulling one stroke, you see that? I'm not doing these choppy little floats because you'll see the lines in those choppy little floats. And then I'll yell at you. So you'll miss me yelling at you, don't you? I'm not in front of you, I can't yell at you. That's what I missed. I'm going to give it a second. Same rule applies. If it's shiny, it's wet. Now we're going to float the center vein, and the center vein is important because we need it. Now I'm going to draw one so you can see it, and then I'll float it. When you do center veins, they always come from the base of your leaf. They always curve a little. Whether they curve to the left or curve to the right doesn't matter. They curve towards the point, but they never go as far as the point. We're not looking to put a line in there to cut our leaf in two. So what we would be doing is I'd start in the middle, I'm going to curve a little, and stop. Okay? So I'll come in And if you need to draw lines, your veins, that's fine. And then I'll come in on flat. And I'm right up against the center vein. Okay. But you see how it doesn't go all the way to the tip? So now this one, there's only going to be a little one because my center is about here. The rest of the leaf is off surface. So I'll just come in. Maybe I'll just come right there. Okay. I don't give them a whole lot of thought. While I'm doing these and telling you, I use DecoArt's Americana paint. It is the best paint on the market. I don't sell things, so I'm not being a salesperson. When I'm in the store, I watch people buying store brand, Apple Barrel. I don't even know which store brands are which, so I can't give you names. I will tell you, everybody says, but they're cheaper. But they're not cheaper because it'll take you 5 coats to do what Americana will do in 2 coats. So not only is it not cheaper money-wise because you, in the end you're using more paint, it's also not cheaper in time because it's going to take you at least 50% more time. So this is the old adage, cheaper is not better. So when you're in the store, just think about those things. I choose Americana because DecoArt is high quality. Again, I am not selling anything at all. I'm just giving you a bit of advice. Okay. So now we're going to use a Mezza Luna. This is a Mezza Luna. A Mezza Luna is a specific brush that creates these lines. See these lines we want to create? That's created with this brush. This brush, it's, again, synthetic, so you can pinch it. We're going to pinch it dry. It's one of the few dry brushes that you can wet and clean and use again in the same project. Most of them you cannot. You guys have been really good. I haven't had one question. I am happy to answer them. So, when I use my Mezza Luna, I pick up my paint. So I have a good amount of paint. I put it between my paper towel. This is a 10, holding it at a 10. So hold it somewhere around a 6, maybe not even a 5. Hold and pinch. So I'm pulling off paint, but I still have a good amount of paint on there. Okay? When you use this brush, your handle's straight up, your pressure is about a 6, and you're going to pull, and you see those lines? That's what I want. So I'm here, and this is what I'm doing. Okay? So I'm going to load, and I'm going to pinch. And from the center vein, now this is something that's really super, super important. We're going to pull diagonally up. My brush is going to be flat like this. So I'm using all of my bristles. Don't pull out straight. You want to go up. Shouldn't have even done that. So watch what I'm going to do. I'm going 3/4 of the way of this section. So I'm almost to the edge, but I'm not quite to the edge. And you see those lines? I'm going to go all the way up. Now you can choose to finish that leaf and do the other side, or just plop over here. Hi Peggy, how are you? Thank you for coming. And you see what I'm doing? I'm creating those lines. I just find it easier to keep my surface the same way. And then I'll turn this way. And again, you see how diagonal I am? You must be diagonal or it will not look right. I've gone over it a couple of times, and that's okay. I will go over it a couple of times. And I may, once I bring the light in, I may go a little bit darker. I got a mess tonight, aren't I? That's a good thing, because this is our last library live. So I'm glad you're not busy in here tonight. It feels so weird to say that. I remember when we started this, and we're going to come over here and do this. I kept saying to my boss at the library, and I'd say, when are we coming back? When are we going back? When are we going back? And it felt like I was always going to be online. And then I guess we got used to it. And we made so many new friends, and we were all happy. And when she said, do you want to go back in person? I had really mixed feelings about it. Not out of fear or anything, because we've been doing it this way for so long, and we've made new friends, and you know, it's just like things do. They become part of your life, your daily routine. Well, not daily, but monthly routine. So it was a little weird. But I'm sure when I go back next month, it'll feel normal. So you see what I'm doing? Now, right now, it looks really dirty. I know that. I'm not worried about that. And you see I'm right on the tip of the brush. Not a lot of pressure. So now you'll know my whole story. You'll laugh when I'm in person. Anybody who paints me in person, convention or library or at home. I just blab away. You'll know my whole life by the time I'm done. And you see what I'm doing? Now, it looks dirty, but it looks textured. I can still see what's underneath it. I can still see, I can see my dark, I can see my medium. Okay? This brush, remember, I can wash it. If you have a paint bucket, pull your brush in one direction only. You don't want to go back and forth. You'll ruin the bristles of your brush. And now I'm going to use a 10 pressure, and I'm going to pinch, and I'm going to hold, and I'm going to really pinch it so that I can pinch all the water out of it, because now I want to pinch it dry. So where we put paint on and we wanted to pinch some of the paint off, now we want to pinch it dry. So now it's back to what it was. Okay. So now we're going to take your light green. In this case, it's olive. Just an FYI for nobody that knows. Olive has been discontinued also. Just like killing me. You can use margarita. You can use matcha green. It's not as pretty, but it's, you know, it'll work. Alright, so again, we're going to load. And we're going to pinch. This is a light pinch. This is a 5 or a 6. Now we're going to do just the opposite of what we did. We took the dark and we went 3/4 of the way towards the edge on a diagonal up. Now we're going to start at the top and we're going to go 3/4 of the way diagonally down. So what we're doing is we're interlocking our two colors. We're not putting them and creating a line between them. We're interlocking them. So I'm going to come from here. And you see what I'm doing? This color is much, it's a much bigger value change. And you see that? That changes the whole look of the leaf. You can see that. I'm just cleaning up what I got on the background with a wet Q-tip. Q-tips from the dollar store. They have less cotton on them. They're much easier on your piece. Okay, I'm going to load. I'm going to pinch. And I'm going to come diagonally. What's wrong with my hand tonight? I'm going to come diagonally down and interlock. I'm not going all the way to the vein. See how pretty that looks? Now if you come too far down and you lose too much of your dark, you can go back in and do the dark again. Now they're looking like beautiful leaves, aren't they? Somebody told me once, I make beautiful leaves. And you see what I'm doing? I'm just coming in. And it's a dry brush one way and a dry brush the other. They interlock. I know it's quiet. I always say that to them at the library. When I give them a liner, they get really quiet. Aren't they pretty now? And they're not done yet. Every time I load, I load and I pinch. And this one only has a little, because we only see a little. See that? And we'll come. And I haven't had to reload. Well, here I do. See how I have less paint? So I'll load and I'll pinch. And I'll come in. And I'll drop brush. Now, I don't need it, but I'm going to show you it anyway. And let me just do something. I'm going to do this exaggerated just in case somebody did this. Just say you came all the way to the vein and you have no dark in there. Okay? So now we're going to clean our brush. We're going to pinch a 10. Pinch all that water out. We're going to go back to the dark. Load, pinch at a 6, and we're going to come from here, and we're going to pull the dark right back in. So you're not married to a mistake you make. We all make them. And if I feel like I did too much, then I'll come in. I want both sides to match. I'll come in with the light, and you can go back and forth. Believe me, you could play for hours. Okay? So that's how you would fix what you did. And same thing is if you went too far with the dark and then you need to bring in more light, that's fine. That's a dark and a light fix. Okay. So now what we're going to do, and I spend a lot of time on leaves because I happen to really love my leaves. We're going to come in, and because we dry brushed both ways, we lost the depth of the base of our leaf. Now it doesn't look like we have a distinct base. So I'm going to go back in and float. Wet, blot, load, blend all the bristles on all the surface in exactly the same spot. So let me just get this in. Look at the difference between this leaf and this leaf. You can see this has more depth because we've just come in and we've reinforced what we just did. Okay, so, and this is we don't have to reinforce here. Here our center vein is fine. We just have to reinforce down at our base. And it'll go a little quicker because you already have it in. 4 steps: wet, blot, load, blend. Blend until you have a graduation of color. And I'll just quickly get that in. Every time you do it until it's a habit, say it. Wet, blot, load, blend. All the bristles flat on the surface all the time. Whenever you're floating, all your bristles are down. And you can see the difference in my leaves. Okay. Now we want to add a couple of highlights. Now, here's just a tip while this dries for a second. When you use a mop or a stencil brush or anything, it gets dirty. And what happens is then when you mop, you can see I still have green on my brush. You can't wet them because they'll be no good till the next class, till they dry. So in between class, if you need to, take a baby wipe and we can take the color off. Because of the alcohol in there, it'll dry just about right away. Of course, after class, wash it with soap and water. And now I've cleaned my brush. I'll take my paper towel, the dry area of my paper towel, and I'll just wipe it off. And then my mop is as good as new. And then after class, I'll wash my brush. When you wash your brush, put soap in your hand. I use Murphy's oil soap. Wiggle. You'll see the paint coming out of your brush until all the paint's out. Pinch it as hard as you can. Get all the water out. Dry it flat. In the morning when it's dry, you can store it this way. If you store it this way when it's wet, the water will get down and loosen the glue in the ferrule, and your brush will be no good. Okay. So now we're going to add a couple of highlights. So we're going to float, wet, blot, load, blend in our light green, which in this case is olive. And we're going to just pop up some areas. So now you can see, now this edge is off of there. Depending how you laid out your leaves is dependent on, there we go, that's better. And it should graduate. Now if I didn't clean my mop, I would have dark green in there. But I'm making a mess. I don't know why I'm making such a mess tonight. Okay. Because I want to teach you how to fix it. Sounds good, right? then we'll come in. And I'm just doing some edges. I'm not doing the whole thing. By not doing the whole entire edge, I'll have more depth. Okay. And then here I might do here. When you don't have all these points, I'll be honest with you, it's a little bit easier. Floating in all these little points is a little annoying. But they look very, very pretty when they're done. So you don't want to not do the points. A lot of leaves don't have little points on the edge, so you have a little bit of an easier time. I'll come in. So hopefully, because I have more leaves, I'm giving you enough time to work on yours. And you can see I'm popping them up. Let me come here. Wet, blot, load, blend. I know I say it a lot, but it's really important. So now, on my piece, I have 2 leaves here. I don't want this leaf on top because that's, you can tell it's not supposed to be because it's dark there. So I'm just going to fix that. And I'll brighten that edge. And I'll pull this leaf on top of that leaf. See that? So now you can really see the depth there. You all are so quiet. I hope you're all painting. Very diligently concentrating. And I'll bring a little bit here. After we get our highlight on, I want to highlight opposite our center vein. So what that means is one side of our vein is dark, one side will be light. You can tell which way your paintbrush went. Here is my darkest, here's my vein. My darkest area is here, and it graduates this way. So I want my light to go right up against the darkest area of the vein. I'm floating on the opposite side, so I am not going over my dark area. Okay, so I'm here. I'm right up against it. And you see how that really pops that flower, or that leaf? Look at that leaf versus that leaf. And that's just the center vein, giving it that highlight. Okay, and you just have to look at which way you laid your brush when you did your shading. I can see my paintbrush was this way, so I'm going to go up against what I did, and I'm going to go this way. I'm not up on top of it, I'm next to it. See how beautiful those leaves look? And they really aren't that hard. Now, because I have ladybugs, I'm going to take a little cad red, which is a lighter red than the ladybugs. Just a bit. This is an optional step. I'm going to go back to my Mezza Luna. I'm going to pick up some red. I'm going to pinch in a dry part. And then here and there, I'm just going to dry brush little patches of red. When you do a piece, you have to have your color throughout your design. You can't just take red and put it here, or purple and put it here. You don't have to put it on every leaf. It doesn't have to touch the edge. It doesn't have to be a big deal. And you see how much interest I just created in those leaves? Now let's see if you could see it from there. Your time delayed. Am I frozen? Uh-oh. Okay, you can still see. All right, my iPad's frozen. Okay. Yes, you take the Murphy's oil soap out of the brush. You keep cleaning it, and then you clean it until it's wet. Emily, what color what? I'm going to have to get out of the iPad and pop back in. Okay, I think we're okay now. All right, so now you're going to take your, I use a rigger, so I'm going to show you how to use a rigger. And we're going to base coat our ladybugs. So it depends on what you have. I find a rigger to work easier. So I'm going to take my rigger, which looks like this. It kind of looks like a liner, but it's thicker. And I'm going to flatten it. So I'm wet. I'm going to pull some paints. I'm going to wiggle. Okay. So now I've got a nice flat brush. I can use it on the edge and have a nice thin brush. I can leave it round and have a round brush. Okay. So for this, I'm going to flatten. I'm going to paint my ladybugs. I floated with yellow. I didn't float anything with yellow. I floated with olive green. I floated with olive green. But you can use yellow. It's okay. So a ladybug's pretty easy because he's oval. And then he'll have a black head. So ladybugs are not a big deal. And on this piece, I love ladybugs, so we put, when my daughter was little, she had a ladybug thing. And we had ladybugs everywhere. So let me get some on. Now, do they all have to be on the leaf? No. I have some coming from under the leaf. So in that case, I would be here. And I would go about there. And then I'll put a head on top when we get to the black. And then there'll be a little head here. You could also, for no reason, have one crawling off the leaf. Sorry, or onto the leaf. There's so we'll do this one crawling onto the leaf if we need it. Okay. Now you see how thin my coats are. they're semi-transparent. I'll go back in and I'll put another coat on. Let's have this one coming off. He's trying to escape. I have to tell you, when I designed this, I was thinking about where all these ladybugs were running to. And I have fun with them. When you paint something, no matter what you're painting, have fun. We have a lot of fun with these. Have a lot of fun with them. Let's do... and I'll only do the ladybugs on these 3 leaves, so that we don't have too many. Well, not that we don't have too many, so we don't run out of time. They can be bigger, they can be smaller. Keep in mind, the smaller they are, you have floating to do on them, so you don't really want to have them too small. Now, I have caca here, because my paint went off, so I'm just going to have a bug coming off, and I'll get rid of that. That's kind of the way we fix our little boo-boos. Remember I told you there's always a way to fix them? That's the way we fix them. Oh, we can't have 13. That'll drive me crazy. I have my superstitious little things. And then I'll do one more. And I have a lot of ladybugs. I do. Here, we'll do one here. We'll have him crawling away. Now, if you look at my ladybugs, they are not opaque, meaning solid, a solid base coat. So I'll just come back in and I'll add another thin coat, and that'll be enough. And when you make an oval, just like I've been doing, I do one side, make my shape, and then just fill it in. Same thing if you were to do a circle. One side, make your shape and fill it in. Star the same way. Draw it out like you would with pencil and fill it in. A few more. Is everybody getting their ladybugs in? Now, do you have to have as many ladybugs as me? No. I like the ladybugs. I like the color. They make me smile. But you don't have to have as many ladybugs. Okay. And here. Here, here, and here. Okay. So right now it looks like we have a bunch of blue, red polka dots. Oh, missed one. Now I can tell I missed this because it's still transparent, and these are not. So when I could see through it, transparent is seen through it, opaque is solid. Hey Janet, you are late. That's okay, you're here. Isn't that what matters in the end? The answer is yes. I'm glad you're here. Okay, so here, right now, they just look like a whole bunch of spots. You have to envision which way they're crawling. Okay? It doesn't matter if they're... Bugs can go either way. So where you would have a branch or you would have a highlight, it would have to go with the growth of the leaf. You don't have that here. Okay? Because bugs can crawl. And they do. So we're going to take a little bit of black plum. And we're going to float. Now, where we loaded further along on our brush because we wanted a wide float, we want just a little tiny bit on the corner. And we're going to float the back of the body. That's the first float. So just a little bit. My brush is still flat. Because you're on a smaller area, you tend to go like this, but we're not going to. I'm still perfectly flat. I'm going to have this one crawling this way. And this one can be crawling this way. So this is the back of the body. Think of which way they're crawling. So your black head is going to be opposite this. Think about that. Okay? And we're just going to come along the back of the body. Let's do this one this way. Now, I flipped my brush. I don't want you to flip your brush. I want you to flip your whole piece. And here. Now, my ladybug that's under the leaf, we're going to shade right here against the leaf because we want to push him under the leaf. Remember, dark makes it recede, light brings it forward. So if we have half a ladybug under the leaf, we have to shade the back of the body. I do too, Shirley. Ladybugs make me smile. They've always made me smile. My daughter now, who will be 30, that tells you how old I am. My daughter will be 30 in July, and she's always had a massive obsession with ladybugs. And so now my granddaughter, again, there's my age. My granddaughter, when we went to the library, she got a book called Ladybug Girl. And it's a whole series. It's really very cute. The little girl, excuse me, turns into Ladybug Girl. So that's like her superhero. And she can do anything because she's a superhero. And it's so fun. And she's like, Grandma, I love ladybugs. I'm like, I do too. Let's have him going too. So you see what I did? Now, some of you may stress this. Let's do this after. Okay, so now I know where all my ladybugs are. We're going to take a little dry brush. I use sable dry brushes, if I can find them. And we're going to take some tangerine. Now, Emily, I know you didn't have tangerine, so you can use cad yellow. You can use a yellow. It's a nice bright orange. If you don't have it, you can use yellow. Now, this brush is a little different. Once it's wet, you can't use it. So we're going to pick up some tangerine, and on the side of the brush, I'm just going to pull some paints off. And then very lightly, I'm going to dry brush right in the center of the body. And that's going to give us a rounded edge because the sides are darker, so the sides are going down, and the center is brighter, so the center is coming closer. Okay. Here. Not that bright. Here. And you can see that it's just a little scrub. I use very technical terms when I teach. And scrub. And it's not a long step, but look at the difference between this ladybug and this ladybug. Okay? You can see how they start to come to life as we do each little step. Here. Now, when you have a ladybug, a lot of people don't realize it. There's a separation down the middle, which everybody thinks is just a separation. It's actually the separation of his wings. So when he separates, his wings go out and he flies. Okay? So what we're going to do, and honestly, I can't see you, so I won't yell at you. You can appreciate that, Terry, right? Because when I'm there, I yell at them. I don't let them use certain brushes, and I don't let them use markers. But we want to do the wing separation. So I'm going to float them in. You can float them, or you can do them with a liner. We're still going to be in the black plum. Very little on the corner of your brush. And you're going to just come in and see how I just separated his wings. My brush is perfectly flat. It's just a little bit of paint on it. Nobody has had any questions. Are you all doing okay? Emily, I hope you're doing okay. I know you've had a hard day. You'll soon be sitting with me. And we're here, and we're here, and we're here. And look, I made a mess right there. Sometimes when you float, like where that came off, when you have too much water on your brush, the color pulls with it, and that's what we call a halo. And you don't want halos because you see them, because they're color. It's not clear. Oh, one more. Okay. They're beautiful, aren't they? You need some lamp black. Just a little bit of lamp black. And now we're going to, I'm going back to my rigger. Again, if you don't have a rigger, improvise. Don't use a liner because you'll have tons of lumps. But try for a 0 flat or something in that, some very small, around, something that you can do what I do with. And we're going to give them heads. Now remember what I said. Where we shaded was dark, was the back of the body. So now we're going to come in and we're going to give them, think of a C and fill it in. Okay. Try not to be as big as that. Well, that's not so bad. And it connects to the body. Black is wonderful. It'll take one coat. And I line it fill it in. And just remember, the dark is in the back. That was a bad one. Sometimes my ladybugs don't look so much like ladybugs. But now your piece should be colorful and fun and beautiful, and it should look pretty much like mine. Here, and I know I skipped one, but because my surface is in this direction, I'm just doing them this way so that I'm not making you all dizzy by flipping it around. I was doing something. What was I doing? Oh, I was teaching on Zoom, and somebody had a lazy Susan, and she kept spinning it. I said, oh my goodness, you're going to make me sick. Just couldn't watch it, so I'm trying not to do that to you. I can be nice sometimes. Not always, but sometimes. And then I have these two, which I have to flip. And he's really starting to look like a ladybug now. And this is why I only did these ladybugs. Because a lot of them. Okay, now you should be dry. And remember what I said, look at it on an angle. Now we're going to do a little float in warm white. And then I promise last float. You always have to promise students. I don't know. We'll see if that's nice. And we're going to come very little on the corner of your brush. And we're going to highlight right along the top of the head. That'll pop it off your surface. And you see how I haven't even reloaded my brush yet? I could probably get through 3/4 of these. Let me see what I'm doing. I'm just lightly wet, blot, load, blend. Load very, very little on the corner of your brush. Fix that. And then I just have a couple this way. So here, and I'm right along the edge. Now I just pulled the front of their heads closer to us. You're right, Janet. They're very detailed. Everything I do is very detailed. But that's what makes the difference. So here is my original piece. So they look like ladybugs crawling. They don't just look like red dots and black dots. And the littlest details make all the difference. If you don't want to put that much work into them, my suggestion is make less ladybugs and still do the work, as opposed to not putting in what you should. Okay, now we're going to use our liner. When you use a liner, you're going to go to the water, blot, quick, pick up some paint from here. Don't spin your brush in the paint. you will break it at the ferrule. Think about when your I can't show you because you can't see me. Think about your finger at your hairline. If you twirl it, you're breaking it at your head. You don't want to do that. So if you want it all over, twist, lift and twist. You're going to make little feet. Now, his little feet in the front, they come out and forward, out and forward. Then he has two little straight antennas. Okay, can you see that? I think you can. Okay. Then I'm going to do, okay, so let's do this one. You're out and forward, out and forward. Your two little antennas. Flip him. In the middle of his body, he has two that just come down a little. They don't bend really. And then his back feet come, watch it, you don't have an extra hair on there. They come down and out, down and out. Okay. I'll show you a couple more. Let's do this one. So he's forward and forward, forward and forward. Two little antenna. And we'll do him too. Now you know why I didn't do tons of them. You know what I'm going to be doing in an hour, right? I'm going to be painting ladybugs. No, I'm not. I'm going to be painting gnomes. Here. And here. And then they come out and out and out and out. Almost like an elf. And these come here, here, and then, so after you do all of that, because we'll run out of time if I keep doing them, I'm going to use a stylus. Now, a stylus is a tool. You can get them at art supply stores, but you can also get them, don't tell anybody I told you, but you can get them at nail salons. Not nail salons, like beauty supply stores. They're for, they say they're for nail art, but they're really not. They're for painting. So this could be anything. It could be lucite, it could be wood. This is metal, and then it's got a little ball on the end. I don't know if you could see it. There's a little ball. And what the ball does, you pick up paint and hold it up, and it'll give you perfect circles. So that's one size. And they come in all different sizes. And then this is a much smaller size. Okay? So I'm going to take the bigger size. And I'm going to give them. And I'm just, look, I'm loading. And I'm just dotting. I'm just giving them their dots. Doesn't matter how many. No. Not at all. Doesn't matter if you do dots before you do legs. Nope. The only thing you have to have done is you have to have the body done. So you have to have your dry brushing done. You have to have your shading done. Okay? Is there anything, I'll flip around in a minute, but is there anything that anybody has any questions on? This is probably very distracting too, isn't it? No? Did everybody get their ladybugs done? Yes, no. Nobody wants to talk to me, huh? I'll do one or two more. And then I'll pop around and see ya. Oh, we'll do this one. This is a good one because it's on white. So I have my 2 legs in the front, my 2 little antennas that are small. Then I flip. He has 2 little legs here. I do love this piece. And then my legs in the back go like that. And then take your stylus. If you don't have a stylus, you can use the back of your brush. They'll be bigger. Or you can use your liner and make dots. You don't have to have a stylus. This one I'll give a lot of dots to. You can have lots of them. I don't give them all 2 or 3 or 4 dots. Some get 6, some get 2, some get 1. Can you show us what your in-person library will be? I don't remember what it'll be. That's, what month is this? May, June. I can show you July, because that I still have here. This will be July. This is one of my new pieces. My library pieces, FYI, are not always my own designs because I run out of time to design. But this is, so he's got a lot of glitter, and so this is July. This is one of my Julys. Honestly, I don't even remember. I don't even remember. I bring them up to the library and then I don't think about it. So, oh, let's see. Yes. Oh, good, Shirley. I want to see it. Oh, Jerry, I'm sad you were late. Oh, my daughter is the same age as you and was called, let's see, Ladybug for years. So, how sweet is that, Brenda? Put a little snow on your ladybugs. I'm not laughing at your snow, I swear I'm not. All right, let me plop around. I'm a terrible person, aren't I? Okay, rotate my phone. Look, it's making me rotate. Okay, I probably gave you all whiplash, didn't I? I'm not laughing at you. I swear I'm not. All right, so this is what I'm going to say. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you all for being here. It's been a joy to be here for 14 months. It really, really has. I'm laughing at your snow. I don't mean to. I'm sorry. And I'm headed to Florida tomorrow, so that's even like I'm a bit further away. So I thank you all from the bottom of my heart for spending the last 14 months with me. Through the library, I'd like to say thank you. Beth, how sweet. Anybody who's friends with me on Facebook, I will do a Facebook Live once a month. Of course, I have my Zoom classes. I just posted my flamingos yesterday. I have gnomes coming up, and I have some ornaments. I have a bunch of Zoom classes, and I will do Facebook Live. Artfully Connected. Shh, it's a really, really big secret that now everybody's going to know. Artfully Connected, July 2nd, I'm going to do a free class on there. I'm going to do a flag on mine. I will post it hopefully tomorrow while I'm on the plane. So from the bottom of my heart, I thank you all. You all mean the world to me. And hopefully you're hanging on my personal page with me. So this is not an end of anything. All right. So everybody stay safe, stay well, stay in touch, all of those wonderful things. And that's about it. All right. Love to you all. Bye.